fulfilling itself. So what I say, let me wind this up, is we need to have these kind of candidates, and I'll tell you, if there's justice in this country, and if there's a lot of prayer, Trump will be back because the election of 2020 was stolen. No doubt about it. There are now tons and tons of evidence, but the main media are in collusion, talk about collusion, with the leftist political party, the Democrats. Now, it doesn't mean that every Democrat I'm saying is evil or wrong. I'm just saying the party, though, that party is very corrupt. Oh, yeah, Republicans aren't all honest either, but believe me, it's day and night the amount of corruption on the Democrats to the Republicans. In fact, the reason I'm independent, I would be a Republican, is when they are in power, they're too namby-pamby weak and don't take care of the fraud that they was done against them. But now we had massive cyber hacking nationwide by different groups, and a lot of this was coordinated. And Mike Lindell, yeah, he made a documentary. I think it's over a year ago now, Absolute Truth, where he shows and he mentions at the beginning of this, if you ever saw it, all he says is our military gave us this information. Remember, Trump was commander in chief up until November, the last month he served. He was in charge of the military. So he knows this from the military. Now, to be more specific, what he's probably talking about is our U.S. Army has a cyber warfare division, and they're the ones who maintain cyber intelligence and fight off the hacking from all these countries come to the United States. And I would guess they probably do some hacking themselves. Come on, let's be honest. They probably do too. But they knew, and they showed in the map that they show in this presentation, they show a worldwide map and where actual machines were hacked and the point of origin, because in the machines, a computer has IP addresses. You can tell from geography where exactly, what city, maybe even part of the city, that actual singular computer was that was hacked because of the IP addresses. And they show where, yeah, a lot of it was China, a lot of it was the European country, and then just here. Now, this was the hacking. In all those voting machines, I don't care what brand they are, they're all subject to hacking. If you see, even when they use the Diebold machines from, say, 15, 20 years ago, I believe, they still might use them. They might still be around. You'll find YouTube videos showing how they hack these college, university people and students that are studying information technology, how they hacked into these machines, how they changed votes from way back. And that's before they had the internet. Now we have the internet. It's even easier because you can do it wireless. They almost all can be connected with the internet directly or indirectly. You can put a thumb drive in it that's programmed and abuse them. And then when on the ballot, everyone will tell you that teaches technology and about computers when it comes to voting, a written ballot is far more secure than any machine because machines are hackable, period. And then the actual handbook of the Dominion machines, this was shown in court like 6 months ago. A federal judge was presented their handbook that shows there's a feature in those machines that's called a weighted feature. And that means if you want one vote, one person votes and he gets one vote, 1 and 1. That's a ratio. One person, one vote. You can change those ratios with the machines. It's in their handbook. So if you wanted one person to vote and make it wind up being 2 votes, you can do that. You can change it. Fractions of a vote, 1.5 vote. So out of 100 people, if you doubled it, that's 200 votes that 100 people cast. or 1.5 votes times 100, that's 150 votes. Or you can go beyond that. But when you come to millions of people voting in a state, that really adds up the number of votes. And the judge said when he saw this, the only reason for that feature is to commit fraud. There is no other good reason to have that feature. So they've done hand counts in several counties now, and the person who was like in third place, the hand count, they won. Hand count is better. Now, one thing about the ballots, some people will in some states will scan the ballot and then use the scan, but that becomes digitized. It's now subject to hacking, or they can erase votes. So we don't want scanning ballot. We want written ballots hand counted. Now that brings us to just a couple months ago when Dinesh D'Souza, he worked in the Ronald Reagan administration. He's originally from India, smart guy, politically conservative. He did this documentary, 2,000 Mules. And the 2,000 stands for 2,000 people who were the mules, just like in drug trafficking, when you got the traffickers carrying the contraband, mostly the drugs, or it could be other stuff, they're the mules. Well, he showed conclusively, I've seen this movie twice, this documentary, they showed 6 states as a sample and counties in these states where they had drop boxes because, of the pandemic. They were saying, we're going to eliminate voting in person, so we're just mailing out. A lot of states were just mailing out to everybody a ballot, even though you didn't ask for one, which is not safe right there, because now you're subject to people getting ballots who are no longer on the rolls, who moved away, who died, or whatever. Plus, this happened. They found out that these nonprofit organizations, and they haven't named them, but they know who they are. Hopefully they'll come out and do that publicly, but I know they've contacted law enforcement about some of this. They have, in this film, it shows that through geo-tracking people's phones, they tracked, in these states, they put out these freestanding ballot collection boxes. They're almost like a mailbox out somewhere, bolted down to the sidewalk somewhere, and you drop your mail in there. Well, they did that with the ballots, but they were ballot boxes, unattended. So at nighttime, there's a ballot there. Well, mostly at night, it happened in the daytime too, but mostly at night, especially in the wee hours of the morning, these cars would pull up, someone would get out, a guy or a girl, and they'd have multiple ballots, and they'd be there stuffing these ballots into the ballot boxes. And the thing is, they realized when they bought this information on the geo tracking for the phones, you could buy it if you have the money and you know who to buy it from. And they said, you know what, so many people have made so many trips, we're going to get people that at least made 20 trips in one night to the same box. And that way we know for sure they were doing fraud, because in most states, in all states, it's illegal to pay people to do illegal ballot dumping like that. Okay, that's for sure. That's obvious. But also, you may only be able to allow to drop off for your family or immediate family, maybe. But who goes at like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, 20 trips, and is dropping off a bunch of ballots? That's all fraud, folks. It's obvious. But not only did they buy the geo-tracking that shows where they went and got the ballots from and where they were within like a foot, they know like within pretty much a foot, 2 for sure, of where they were at the boxes. Because the people that try to disclaim that, oh, well, if someone driving by the street just on his way home, and no, it's not, because you're near there. You have to be within a foot or 2 of this box. Geo-tracking is used by the military. It's used by the feds when they're going after people, tracking them by their phones when they got warrants. Hopefully they got a warrant. So it's very, very precise, very right there within a foot, 2 at the most. It's not people driving by on their way all the time. No, that's not going to cut it. That's a poor, lame excuse. Okay, so Not only that, but then a lot of these drop boxes were put in public places, like in front of a court, maybe in front of a school, somewhere public. They're not on the boonies away from anything, or they're somewhere. So they're by a building. Usually it's a government building, and could be a post office, a library, a school, like I was saying. And these places, almost all of them have cameras for security, and they bought this group through the vote who provide the main information for the 2000 Mule movie. They bought also this video footage, and now they just knew where to look for the cameras, because they okay, here are these mules are dumping ballots here. Let's see what's in that location, and they find a camera, and then sure enough, they have over a million minutes of people dumping ballots on video, and they show you in the film multiple examples of people dumping ballots. And some of these people have been in other states doing the same thing. They're getting paid to do this. That's their gig, their illegal gig. And these nonprofits, here's the other thing. Nonprofits, it's illegal for a nonprofit in the United States to give money for politicians or political support. So these guys, I mean, they're already violating the law because they're paying people to do illegal dumping, but then they shouldn't be giving any money for political reasons either. Okay, so these they have arrested at least one or two people I forget the state, a mule, and I think they're trying to get them. And what normally happens in general, they try to get them to to weed out or find out who the higher ups are, because that's what they really want. So hopefully that's going on, and they're trying to get these people to squeal probably, and there's stuff happening that we don't know, because I know that there's like all this happening. This was just in 6 states. The summation of the movie was in just those 6 states, and not every county in those states, just a fraction of those counties, because some states have as many as 40 counties. So in whatever counties they showed, there was over 440,000 votes that they say are illegal that they can. And now, since the movie, they've done a little more investigation. They have more. They said this is the tip of the iceberg. Nationwide, this is probably only like 5% of the mail stuffing fraud that happened nationwide. So, but just in what they uncovered, that's enough to change things so that legally Biden loses in those states, Trump wins, and he wins the whole country if they did a recount just with those partial counties in those states. So he did win by an overwhelming landslide historic victory. We did. In some places, they were showing the night of the election in the wee hours of the morning. I've seen the videos people posted and played it back. They have a running count at the bottom while the whatever news, CNN or whatever else was playing, they have a ticket showing this is the vote now, right now, for this candidate. This is for Trump. This is for Biden. This is for other people. And all of a sudden, in one of these tapes, it actually stops. The count stops. And that happened in several places. The counting stopped, and then all of a sudden it started going backwards, getting numbers that were smaller than what were there. And that's like, come on, that's not right. How does that happen? And nobody comments on it. They were showing it. But it's about a couple places where they did this. People noticed it on national TV. So we have the machines were hacked, and then we had the ballot dumping together. And that's why don't ever vote in a machine again. Do the ballot. Even if they try to dump it, it's going to be harder to make up all that fraud, because they have to put a ton of fraudulent ballots if we get away from the machines. and it'll be too noticeable. This time around, I think that come November, now that we know what happened, we know how they did it, people are watching and waiting for these people. Some are monitoring these drop boxes to see who comes there now. So it's going to be hard for them to get away with it. See? So I think we will have a red wave because of that. And this is ultimately the 2020 election. My opinion is it's going to wind up with the state legislature and the courts and ultimately the Supreme Court. And that's why I think Trump personally has not announced he's running for 2024, because he won big time and he should be reinstated. That's never happened before, but hey, we never had this kind of massive national fraud known before like this. And it is real. And these networks that refuse to cover it, and the social media, the Twitter, the YouTube, whoever else that were taking people off, don't even want you to hear about it. Come on. I thought it's free speech. If you disagree with it, if you think these people are wrong, well, they're wrong. Are they going to go and say that someone who believes that the earth is flat, the flat earthers, are they going to start banning them too, even though, that sounds ridiculous to most of us? Or the moon has green cheese? Are you going to ban people that say that? No, they let militants, Islamic militants, use some of their sites, and they don't ban them. It's just like COVID, when they were talking about COVID and people were saying hydroxychloroquine. President Trump also brought that up. That's a cure that can keep you from getting it. Oh, no, they started banning that. The press started like that was a red flag if you said that. And a lot of drugstores, pharmacies would actually refuse to give you a prescription for hydroxychloroquine. They were pushing you to get this vax. Folks, let me just say this shortly about the vax. That vax was never fully treated. They always come out with vaccines and they do tests, usually on animals. And we test it for at least a year or more. This thing was not tested for a year or more. This thing was not tested on animals. We do not know the full. We know now, we're starting to see it, but they didn't know when it first rolled it out and pushed you to take it. They didn't know the long-term effects. And now we have right now, in August of 2022, we know that the people that are getting the virus again are the majority who have had multiple vaccines. They're the ones that are getting it more reinfection now. And the ones who got it without taking a vax and they got over it naturally, they are least likely to get reinfected. We know that now. There are also adverse effects. A lot of people are dying suddenly, especially younger people. People are getting more cancer than before. Is it just a coincidence? One doctor I saw said, no, he puts his reputation on the line. He's an expert in this. He says, people are getting a lot more cancer now, or they had cancer and it's coming back to them now. People who've had the vaxes. Now that's something you need to keep in mind. But the point I'm saying is this: there's lots of censorship going on, whether it's the vax, whether it's the fraud in the vote. The establishment is trying to keep us, manipulate us from knowing. But if you are the average person, you go to work. The average person goes to work. If you got a family and kids, and especially the wife or the mom that's single, if you can afford it, you take your kids to daycare, then you go to work, then you come back, pick up your kids. You got a long day, you're tired. You don't got a lot of time to be messing and looking stuff up on the computer and doing stuff, And there's people like me have some time. I don't have a family. God's gave me the gift to be single, and that gives me time to do stuff like this. And it's the latter part of my life when hopefully I've gained a little more wisdom than when I was younger, hopefully, right? And so that's why I decided to put this out, because I feel urgency. I feel I need to speak to churches and Christians especially. And if you're not, you need to learn what's happening, because unless you hear from the Bible, if you're not reading it for yourself and studying it. And folks, let me say this: if you're a Christian and if you've been there for years, you say being a Christian, If you haven't read the whole Bible at least once from beginning to end, or even twice, and you've been a Christian for years, you need to stop spending a lot of time listening to a lot of pastors and teachers other than when you go to a church on a regular basis. You need to spend more time reading the Bible for yourself. Big time. Because you can chase after this teaching, that teaching, this pastor. You're not going to really know. You'll learn some good things for sure, but there's no substitute for you knowing the word personally. There is none. You have to read the word for yourself. Read the word doesn't mean I read my verse for today. Read a book on the Bible through in a week, or read it, study something with, I'm amazed with my, when I started using my cell phone, that I could look something up in the Bible, just tell it, and it would bring it up, and I could find out, oh, I can't remember. Instead of getting my old big concordance, where does it say that in the Bible? I know it says it, but I can't remember exactly where. And instead of getting my big concordance, which I still have them, it can tell you like in seconds the book or the verse, and it makes it so much easier. The Bible on tape, or Bible on CD, or you can stream it or listen to it while you're. If you can't have time to really read it, listen to it when you're driving your car, or listen to tapes or DVDs or whatever. So anyways, this censorship has been going on, and you need to be informed. You need to find reliable sources. We have the independent, mostly conservative news that will tell you what's going on. Like Newsmax, I don't really watch them because I don't have any cable, but they're there. You have in print, you have the Epoch Times, do a lot of investigative journalism, traditional journalism. On the internet, probably the best resource is Gateway Pundit. They're awesome. I get a lot of good stuff from them, reliable, consistent. So these aren't just because they're conservative. Folks, there's a reason that conservative talk radio is so popular, and you don't really find conservative liberal radio, because the things they come up with are the things conservative talk radio is exposing. The liberal or the left wing, their talk radio, conservative mostly, is exposing the things they say that aren't true. So these guys aren't going to come up there and expose the conservatives, because there's only, unless it's the individual, conservative that messed up and did something wrong, because none of them are perfect. But as an industry, they can't. It's not an industry that's ripe with fraud. No, it's the other way around. The conservative radio is puts America first. Usually, conservative values. They want to conserve our values, and then they expose all this stuff that Pelosi's doing with her husband and the business they do, Dianne Feinstein and her husband, things that Newsom, if you're in California, right, they expose all this stuff they're doing, like they order people to be vaxxed and wear the mask and the 6 foot, and then there they are partying with their friends with no mask or whatever in public places and restaurants. It's a double standard, they're elitists. And all this kind of stuff, and the worst stuff in Washington that goes on behind closed doors. Folks, let me tell you something. I'm going back to this because I almost forgot. If you think that there was not fraud in 2020, then think about these two indicators that I say are indicators of what happened without even knowing about the internet hacking and the ballot stuffing. Look at these two things. Number one, boots on the ground is what I call it. If have you ever been to a Trump rally? If you have one in your area, you're not really a Trump guy, go to one and just see for yourself. Forget what you're hearing about them in the media. You go, they're free. See for yourself, hear for yourself what the man says himself, not what they claim he says. Because that's what they're always saying, what he claimed. He says he's for immigration and wants more people to come here. He's against illegal immigration right away. They play it. He's against illegals. He's a bigot. He's a racist. No, he's against illegal immigrants. Isn't it funny that Hillary, Obama, Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, even probably all these other, about 6 years ago, They were all saying they were against illegal immigration. But all of a sudden, they get in power more. All of a sudden, you know what? The Democrats are losing people left and right. So they need new blood. They want illegals. They want to eventually get them to vote Democrat. That's why they want them. They don't. They're rather risk and not care that child trafficking, women trafficking through the border, the big death happening from these drugs. Uh, what's that? Fentanyl is a big one. Remember George Floyd? Uh, they made a big thing. Black Lives Matter used him. Cops killed him. The actual truth about George Floyd, besides him being a criminal, having a history, he was high on fentanyl. Fentanyl, the symptom, what happens when you overdose, you can't breathe. That's why George Floyd was saying, I can't breathe. Before cops even laid a finger on him, he was saying he couldn't breathe. And the coroner said he overdosed on fentanyl. But did that matter that the cop touched him with his knee on his leg? I mean, with his knee on his neck? No, that didn't matter because it's political. They wanted to satisfy politically the people that were crying for blood. And he overdosed on fentanyl. And fentanyl's coming in through our border big time. It's like epidemic. This is a dangerous drug. People might be mixing it with pot or who knows what else they're mixing it with. Open borders. But they don't care if that's coming in. They don't care if illegals are coming in here, and they are taking your jobs. They're not taking jobs that nobody wants. They're taking government jobs. There was a raid a couple years back in a meat plant. It was average. This was a couple years back, but the average pay was like 14, 16 an hour, which is still decent today. But even then, folks, they're taking jobs. They're still getting all this free stuff, free housing, welfare, child support stuff that they won't even give for people that Americans first need it or veterans need it. They don't care about all that stuff. They don't care that people are using the borders. Probably other terrorists are coming in under the guise of being immigrants. As long as they get warm bodies that they can cater to and try to convince them to be Democrat, because you have an exodus. Candace Owens is trying to lead a Blexus, what is it called? They want a lot of blacks are leaving the Democratic Party. Their eyes are open. They're seeing that, especially in the big cities where the mayors are black, like Chicago, New York. Lots of times, if they're not black, they're Democrat. Nothing has changed in decades. We're schooling for the kids, poverty, crime, murder rates high. Nothing changes. If anything, it gets worse. Why? Oh, but when it's election time, they want your vote. They want your Democrat vote. And some of these people are on welfare, so they want to continue to get it. So they'll go ahead and vote for the guy who's giving them their money. If you're reasonable health, you can go get a job and you break off welfare and make even more money. You could if you want. But, some people take the easy way. Some people, they don't want to strive to help themselves. That's how it is. So let me wind this up and say that the other way we knew, besides when Trump went to these rallies, these are like, he'd fill stadiums, break records at one or two places. When Joe Biden was campaigning, literally you can't find a picture where more than 30, 40 people were there. 30 or 40. How there's no signs of a popular backing of Joe Biden when he ran. And for over half the time, he was in his basement. There are all these jokes about him in his basement hiding out. We know he has like dementia or something. It's gotten worse. Sometimes he seems normal, probably the medication they have him taken. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know where he's at sometimes. It's obvious now. Even people around the world leaders joke about him. We know. That means other people are pulling the strings behind him. He's just a figure guy. He closed these permits that were allowed to drill for oil. He closed them. The reason we now had these massive gas prices, and now he's begging Saudi Arabia and Iran for oil when we have the world's biggest supply? He closed it down. The Democrats did this to us, to themselves. Folks, there was no grass support for Biden. I don't know where you live, but where I live, I may have seen a couple bumper stickers for Biden, but I have not seen a single sign in someone's yard for Biden. I saw a lot of house signs for Trump, bumper stickers for Trump, but not for Biden. And like I tell you, it's not there. When the people go to these rallies to hear him speak, that's usually the average people are going there. Unless it's a Black Lives Matter function, they actually bring them in, pay them to be there, bus them in. It's an artificial crowd. These Trump things are not artificial, folks. These are real people. Most of us work, and the ones that are retired, they don't work, but they're a lot of being active and doing things, and that's why they have a lot of rallies in the evening because people are working in the day. Most people still work in the day, even though you might have a night job. So it's these are average people for the most part going to these rallies. This is mainstream America, and there's more Hispanics like myself are voting for him than ever. I saw a guy the other day here in my town. I'm in Nevada. I'm actually in Reno. It's my hometown. This guy had a pickup and he had all these flags in the back. And one was a Trump flag and one was a United States flag. The other two I couldn't quite tell because the wind wasn't blowing that good. But I got close to him when I was making a left turn next to him, and his bumper sticker said said Hispanic for Trump. There's a lot of Hispanics for Trump. Where I work, there's a lot of Hispanics. They don't talk much about politics, but you know what? Me talking to them a little here and there, vast majority of them are for Trump. They just are. They're a silent minority. The ones who are, the ones that actually, or English is their second language, they're a silent minority. A lot of them are for Trump, because they work. And if you're a Christian, I'll say this right now, I don't know how you can still be a Democrat because of their platform. They're anti-God, they're for abortion, they're for these open borders, they don't want to protect your own country. Right, and in the schools, they're all for these whacked out gender things. Men are not men, women are not women. They want to push their homosexuality on people, force it on them. Hey, if you want to be that way, that's up to you, right? But you don't take our tax money and then push people to do that. That's not what we're paying taxes for. Anyway, all that kind of stuff. I don't see how their agenda fits. How can you be a Democrat? And if in these days, when John F. Kennedy was around, that was far enough back where you still had Democrats and Republicans that had a lot of commonality in some issues. Now it's like you'll find most conservatives will be in the Republican Party, and some like me will be independent. And then you'll have the party, maybe not the individual Democrats, but the party are extreme left wing, either socialist, outright communists like Bernie Sanders, or and they have all this undermining of the United States by wanting to give money to other countries instead of giving them more to us, people who are in need among us. So anyways, that aside, let me give you the second indicator. First is what I call boots on the ground. There was no mass public support for people going to rallies for Biden. You just didn't see it. So how could he win that? Second, there's Rasmussen poll is one of the better polls that's been around for years. You have the Gallup polls are fairly good, but the Rasmussen are really good. And Rasmussen, this was like last week, they polled demographics around the country, and here's what they said. Among people who support Trump, and now listen carefully, because This has changed just a little bit from 2020. Remember, we're talking about less than 2 years ago. 80 rough rounded out, 82% of Republicans back Trump. Okay, 82% of Republicans back Trump. That's a big majority. Now, independents like myself, it's about 71% back Trump. And up until 2 years ago, there were more independents than there are Republicans, more independents than there are Democrats. So when you have 82% Republicans for Trump, 71% independents for Trump, and then even among Democrats, you got at least 20 to 24% are for Trump. Yes, there's a significant amount of Democrats that are for Trump, especially the ones that are fiscal conservatives. So when you look at that, and that's only changed a little bit from 2 years ago, you have majority of Republicans, vast majority of Republicans, big majority of independents, and even like a quarter of the Democrats for Trump. How could Biden win? How can he win when most of the people are for Trump? Yet, if you listen and believe the CNNs, NBC, MSNBC, and all those other state media, pretty much, you would think that Trump supporters are the minority. No, that's why all the stuff that's going on, folks, it's not going away. There's too many of us who know we were stabbed in the back. And it's not just Trump that got illegally removed. We're not going to let this happen again in November, the primaries. We know what happened. We know what's happening. It's going to be fixed, because if not, there's going to be big trouble. That's all I'm going to say, because too many people are going to say conspiracy, this and that. This is not conspiracy. And so let me leave it with this. Read your Bible. Be for America. In the Bible, it tells, I'm trying to remember where it was. It just came to me. God tells them to pray for the good of the country they're in. When God's going to send them to other countries and disperse them, he tells them to pray for the countries they're in. Well, we're in this country. Pray for this country. Don't stop, because that's where the main change will happen. Believe it or not, it happens in the heavenly forces. Because Daniel, again, had a vision. He prayed and fasted, and his prayer was heard, but before they can answer it, an angel appears to him later and says, from the very first day you prayed, your petition was heard, but the principality of the air in Persia stopped the answer from coming. And he says, oh, even now, Michael, your great prince, the archangel Michael is dedicated angel mostly to protect Israel. That's his main duty. He goes, I came through to tell you, because Michael showed up, big gun Michael showed up, and he's dealing with these guys, and I'm giving you the message, but I got to go back and help him, because after him, the prince of, I think he says, Greece is coming. So in this spiritual world that we don't see, these fallen angels are demons. Satan himself, he was like a major angel in heaven before, and he rebelled, and a lot of angels followed him. These are the demons. And they fight in spiritual and invisible places we don't see. And that's where a lot of things are determined. And our prayers can change that, because God tells us, I give you all authority. Jesus said, all authority in his name. And do we want it bad enough? Are we going to pray hard enough? You remember, right before Trump got elected, those last year before he got inaugurated, there was national prayer going around this country. A lot of people in different states and nationwide, especially Franklin Graham Jr. or Franklin Graham, he came to every single state and led a prayer. He didn't mention any politicians by name. He just prayed that we would have the best for America. We'd have better people in office. And folks, it was those prayers that helped get Trump in. Because you know what? They committed fraud then too. Now that we know what they did, and at the time we didn't know it was going on, despite the fraud they used then, he still got in. We still beat it. And that's how these machines are keeping dictators in power in certain countries because they know how to. It's like a slot machine. Slot machine can be programmed for the odds. Well, you get these machines and you program it, and it's no different. They're programmed. Oh, we'll let them win a little here, a little there, nothing too obvious. And then, as long as we win, that's what it's like, folks. You know, things are programmed. So I'm going to leave you. God bless. And I don't know when I'll post next. This is my first post. It's more actually a tryout of a little Marantz turret I got. It's a cool little thing. I don't even need software or anything. And it automatically saves the file. So we'll see how it goes. So I'll see you later, maybe. End Times Rider out.